Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar. Myself, Dr. Abhijit Malvi. I am medical advisor at Intas Pharmaceutical Limited. Now, Intas Pharmaceuticals is always at the forefront in providing educational platforms for clinicians, and this webinar is a part of that novel initiative. Now, managing money is important at all times, but it becomes essential during a crisis like this current coronavirus pandemic. In order to provide important money management tips to our clinicians, to help fortify their finances, we have organized this webinar in association with well-known financial planning firm My Financial Advisor. My Financial Advisor is India's only financial planning firm with specialized practice for doctors. While working with doctors fraternity for 15 years, they have met over 2000 doctors and have deep understanding of their life as well as financial needs. Our speaker today is Mistress Chanda Verma, who is Vice President and Financial Coach at My Financial Advisor. She has been dedicatedly working with Doctors Fraternity for last 7 years with MFA. She has a rich experience of over 15 years working with leading organizations like GE Money and HSBC Bank. Now we have with us Mistress Meena Sriram as a moderator for the event. She is an associate director and also a financial coach at My Financial Advisor and has been heading the doctor's practice for 12 years. She has 22 years of experience in the financial service industry. Both of them are certified by NISM as investment advisors. Now, we are waiting for more registrations, so kindly bear with us for 2 to 3 minutes. After 2 to 3 minutes, we'll start the session with Dr. with Mrs. Chanda Verma. So kindly bear with us for 2 to 3 minutes. We'll start exactly at 5:05. Again, a reminder, we'll start exactly at 5:05. We are waiting for more people to join in. We already, if you have any query during the session, please type them into the chat. Please type them into the box. Your queries, all queries will be answered by our experts. So wait is over. I'm handing over the session to Chanda Verma.
Thank you so much. Uh, Dr. Dalvi, thank you so much. So, welcome everybody to our webinar on managing finances during uncertain times. I am Chanda Verma. I have been with my financial advisor for last 7 years. I've been in the financial services industry for last 15 years. So, I would like to start off with just spending 1 minute on adding to what Dr. Dalvi said. So, my financial advisor is a financial planning firm which has been specializing within the doctors community for last 15 years. So primarily financial planning for doctors and secondly financial literacy for doctors. So we started off in 2005 and the main motto of our company is to take care of our clients' money as if we would take care of our parents' money. So with this motto, my financial advisor was started in 2005 and Meena and I have probably met more than 2,000 doctors till date. And I would say somewhere we have grown with them. We have been a part of their journey. So their challenges, their passion, their insecurities, what makes them tick, what ticks them off, I think we've evolved with them. And all this started with a book which was written by Amar Pandit, who's the founder of our firm. Let me show you that book. I'll just share my screen with you right now. So this is the book that was written by Amar Pandit. We've sold more than 75,000 copies of this. So before this book came in, when Meena and I would meet doctors, they wouldn't give us too much of an ear because they would say, I don't understand this, I don't have the time, I don't have the energy or the inclination. I have someone who helps me out with my investments. But it was after that this book came out that the doctors really understood the language that we are talking about. And it wasn't only about just investments and putting your money here and there. And then slowly the things started turning and doctors became our clients because otherwise we had given up on them. So what I'm going to do is in the next 45 minutes to 50 minutes, I'm going to try and concise this book in a few slides so you get the gist of how you should be managing your finances. We have been associated with a number of associations belonging to different specialities, primarily the Indian Orthopedic Association. We are the literacy partners for them. The Indian Society of Cardiology, BIROC, which is the Mumbai's Orthopedic Association. UCCON is the conference held all over India for doctors who are in urology. ASPA, this was the conference we did with the pediatric people. We have had talks at Sion Hospital, Apollo Hospital, and also for Fellow Gynecology Society of India. So today's topic is about managing finances during uncertain times. Now, like Dr. Dalvi said, these are times that we have not seen in the last 10 decades, and doctors are at the forefront of these uncertain times. But not only are they exposed to a health scare, but I see that they are also hit by a reality, something that they weren't aware of earlier. So for example, when I used to meet doctors and I used to ask them, do you foresee a situation where you may not be able to earn for a few months? And they would look at me and say, that's not possible because I'm going to work till my body allows me. So this has clearly come as a jolt to them. And they have come back and said, Ki Chanda, we are like glorified daily wage earners. And so we've been hit really differently as compared to any other professional. So there are two concerns that any of you may be having. One is that my income has dipped, more so for surgeons. So if my income has dipped, how do I manage my money? And secondly is, if this situation has happened now, there may be more situations in future where voluntarily or involuntarily, I may not be able to work. How do I manage? So we are going to be addressing these issues. And the key takeaways or highlights of this PPT are going to be understanding that managing finances is different at different life stages. So you in audience, there might be someone who's 25-year-old, 30-year-old, and there could be someone who's 60, 65, 70. Second is contingency and cash flow planning. personal finance funding options that you have, and safeguarding and investing your existing surplus in such times. I just want to point out two things here. One is that uncertainty is the only certainty in life. Today there is COVID, tomorrow there may be something else. There have been uncertain times in the past as well. I remember during demonetization and GST, so many people were flustered. So we will be talking about things that we have to take care of, which will help us not only in uncertain times, but also when the going is good. Secondly, we are keeping this as simple and basic as possible. This is pretty much what I've learned from my doctors. When I ask them, how do I prevent myself from being infected? What do you guys say? It's very simple. First of all, wear mask if you're going out anywhere. Keep your hands clean with soap regularly when you come back home and a couple of times during the day. And third is, please build your immunity, basic requirements. And that is what we are going to do. Focus on the core things that need to be done to manage finances. There's not going to be any big data, charts, what does Sensex do, what is an Indian economy, which pretty much, being a financial coach, I have seen this in presentations of many big companies and multinational names. But that is not what we are going to do. We are going to talk about main kya karu is situation mein, and that's what we are going to focus on. So the first basic thing, doctors, whoever's logged in, what I need to ask you is, what according to you is planning your finances? Honestly, having met so many doctors in past, the moment I have asked this question to a doctor, have you planned your finances? The prompt answer is, ha, mera investments hai. I have done my investments. I have mutual funds, I have stocks, I have many insurance policies, and I've done my tax planning also. My CA helps me, my family friends helps me. So I have done my financial planning. Now, for them, financial planning means having investments, putting your money in different baskets, 1, 2, or 10 baskets. Nothing wrong with that. It's something that even I used to think maybe a couple of years back, many years back. And it's something that a layman really thinks that way. Now, however, it's not the right way of thinking. So financial planning does not mean just having investments or tax planning. Now, doctors earn a lot during their course of experience and they have a lot of investments. But that feeling, am I sorted? Have I done the right thing? Is this enough? Is this correct? The same feeling that a patient has when he comes to a doctor. That feeling is missing when you just collect investment products. So financial planning really is a process, a 7-step process which results in investment. So financial planning is not investments, and I will keep repeating this again and again. It is a process. And I think doctors can easily identify with this because you follow a process in your everyday life. When a patient comes to you, you don't seriously sit and just say, okay, take this medicine. This is a Cipla medicine, or this is a Ranbaxy medicine, etc. What you do is you first understand the patient, you check him, you run some tests, you do a diagnosis, and finally you give a prescription or you give a way a treatment has to be done. That is your final output. That is your final output. In that case is investment. So the treatment may differ from person to person depending upon the age of the person, his allergies, the life stage he is in, etc. Similarly, investments will differ from person to person. Just because my friend told me, oh, put the money in this particular share, does not mean I have done my financial planning, right? So financial planning basically is a process that you follow which helps you to take a decision with regards to your money. So if doctors, you decide to not do anything with your money, that also is a financial decision. But after this webinar, if you take that kind of a decision, it's not going to be a very good financial plan. That's for sure. Also, a financial plan is documented either in a soft copy or in a hard copy. It's like your prescription. So it documents what is your current financial situation, what are the things you need the money for, and how will you achieve this particular thing. So that is in a nutshell financial planning. It is not just having 10 mutual funds, shares, 20 stocks, nothing like that. So like I said, there are 7 components of financial planning. I'll just spend 1 minute on this. We are not going to get into details right now. The first step is contingency planning. The second step is risk management. I think risks a doctor really understands. Third is goal planning. Fourth is retirement planning. Fifth is asset allocation and strategy, succession planning, and making a will and annual review. These are not jargons. I'm going to simplify this for you. So contingency planning means before you start managing your money, first is please provide for emergencies, like we see in the current case. Second is risk management, which means you should have your insurance cover in place, be it medical, be it indemnity, be it accident policies, be it your life cover, property where people have hospitals or clinics, property insurance, very, very important. Goal planning. This is basically you give purpose to your money. Now, for a doctor, in a doctor's language, when you give a treatment, you know why you're giving a treatment. It's just not about giving one medicine to the patient. Similarly, when you invest your money, it's about knowing why are you investing the money. And if you're investing in, say, a mutual fund or a stock or a PPF, why are you doing it in it? So giving a purpose. Retirement planning means you have to basically plan for something which is inevitable when you will slow down. Asset allocation is pretty much like a balanced diet. Like I need a balanced diet to be healthy. Similarly, for my financial life to be healthy, I need a balance of different assets, different investment products. Preservation comes from planning your succession plan, having a will in place. An annual plan review is pretty much like medical check. It's not fill it, shut it, forget it. So there are triggers. Like for example, if I go for my medical check and I find out I have borderline diabetes, at least I can start taking precautions so that it doesn't aggravate. Similarly, a planned review should be done so that if there are any issues, we plug it in. So what I would request all the doctors who've joined in, any of you now who understands, have you planned your finances? In the chat section, if you have done all of this, then you write yes. If you need help, then you write need help. So I would request you to do that, and then we will come back to you and see how people who need help can be helped. All right. Now, it's also very important when I tell doctors that you're not supposed to look at just investments, like you don't just look at medicines, you look at what is the course of treatment that you're doing. This is important for doctors because your life cycle, as we understand, is very unique. First important thing, your career starts really late. It's only at the age of 30, early 30s, that doctor really starts after all his studying is done. And it is only at the age of 45 or 50 he starts speaking, whereas this is the age where any other professional, be a CA, a CEO, or any other professional, he's almost at his midlife crisis. So they have like a run up of more than 10 to 15 years before a doctor really starts speaking. Secondly, most doctors say, like I told you, we are glorified daily wage earners. If we don't see patients, we don't earn. If I don't go to work, I don't earn. Also, the earning is unpredictable. There are highs and there are lows. It depends upon the number of operations you do, number of patients that you see. So there is always an uncertainty there. And lastly, there is no forced saving. So a doctor has to provide for himself. There are no retirement benefits. So no EPF, gratuity. So you need to take the onus of creating your own kitty. Now, like I said, when you are today looking at planning your finances, it is as per your life stage. So I have tried to see, each of you would identify with this. I have mentioned some points which are very self-explanatory. I will just take you through this. For all those who are in the age group 30 to 40 years, this we call it as the learning phase, because this is the age where you're just learning, you're building your experience, so your earnings are low. At the same time, your expenses may be high because you're studying for super specializations. The other thing that you're doing is deciding whether you should take up a job with a private hospital or maybe set up your own practice, do your own consultancy. This is also the time you get married and you start a family, so expenses increase. Plus, there are some people who sometimes take an education loan to complete their medical degree, and they might be looking at repaying this loan. Age 40 to 50 is the growing phase. Now, this is where you guys are looking at establishing yourself as a specialist. So what happens is you're working harder, The time is a problem. There is very less time. Financial planning takes a back seat. Your income is slowly rising, but at the same time, lifestyle expenses are rising because kids are growing up. You may be taking a loan for a house or for a clinic or for equipment. And then this is where the focus is to start saving for your kids' education. That's where your main financial priority is. In age 50 to 60 years, now this, like I said, are the peak earning years for the doctor. So these are the earning years. This is where you establish yourself. So you have high earnings, at the same time high expenses, but also maximum savings potential. This is also the time when doctors, they start thinking, okay, I want to be debt free by the time I'm 60 years of age, and my main responsibilities are my kids' education and marriage, and after that I'm free to look after myself. Age 60 plus years is the preservation stage. Now, doctor has spent 30 years building his practice. Now, at this point in time, the doctor really needs to think, am I working out of choice, or am I working because I have no choice? So it's very important at this stage that you need to know whether you have enough to call it a day if you want to. And even if you don't want to, that's fine. But the focus is, how do I preserve what I have already made? Because you don't have another 30 years in case there is a financial mistake or a financial problem. You don't have another 30 years to make that money. And the other important thought that we always talk about with doctors is, what about my practice once I slow down? Have you ever thought about it? So keeping these financial priorities in mind, let's look at what should you do to manage your finances at each stage. So at the stage of 30 to 40, you're not earning much, right? So I meet doctors who say, oh, I just end up saying 5,000, 10,000. What do I do with it? I might as well spend. We always tell the doctors, if you earn 100 rupees, keep 25 to 30 rupees aside. And you think that you have earned only 70. That is called having a savings budget. So thumb rule is, you have to save and invest 25 to 30% of your income. Do you know, if you save 10,000 rupees, say at the age of 30, this can grow to more than 2 crores by the time you're 60. So it looks like a drop, but can be an ocean. Also, you might be taking debt at this stage, maybe a home, etc. Try and keep your EMIs less than or equal to 30% of your income. Third important thing at this stage, since you're starting a family, it's possible your spouse takes a break after childbirth, etc. Always keep money aside for a slowdown. It could also be that you're trying to complete a course which may require you to go abroad, or not be able to work the same number of hours. So these should be your key three focuses. At the age 40 to 50 years, whoever is in this stage, first important thing, creating a fund to invest in your practice. What do I mean by that? Now, there are some doctors who start working on their own right from the start, whereas some people, they work, they build experience, they do a lot of consultancy, and then they start thinking of establishing their own practice, having their own clinic, or getting together with other doctors and establishing a hospital. In this case, we help the doctors that from their earnings, they start keeping some money aside so that they can fund, so that they can invest in their practice whenever they start off. For doctors who already have a clinic or have a hospital of their own, second important thing is, always separate your personal finance from your business finance. This is very important, and I can cite an example of a very well-known doctor who had 100 crore hospital. He was barely 52 years of age. And when there was a financial crisis, this 100 crore hospital did not help him. So he was asset rich, but he wasn't cash rich. He hadn't created anything in his own name. Doctors are so passionate. For them, their hospital, their clinic is them, themselves, they're one entity. So keep investing back in their business, because that's what's going to give them 100% return. But the idea is that whatever you earn, a particular percentage you need to keep paying yourself. You invest it in your name, and then this kitty can be used for yourself or for your practice, whatever you choose to be. So very, very important point. Third, as your income increases, keep increasing your investments. Now, why this is an important point to make, though it looks very obvious, is we start with a 25-30% savings, but as our money increases, our expenses also increase, and you want to live your lifestyle, which is all good. At the same time, we say try and see that at least 10% is the increment of your investments every year. So suppose you are investing, say, 2 lakh per month, you increase it by 10% to 2,20,000 every month from next year onwards. So try and up it up because there is always a bandwidth. At the same time, try and limit your debt to 50% of your income. Why this is important is we meet doctors, they earn 10 lakhs, 15 lakhs a month, but more than 50% goes in the different loans that they have, be it car loan, be it a housing loan, be it a second home loan, etc., which leaves them with very little bandwidth to really save for themselves. So try and limit your debt to 50% of your income. Very, very important at this age group because this is the growing stage, remember. Term cover. Now, what happens is insurance is really missold to the doctors. They're very soft targets. So insurance is sold under the garb that, you know, you'll get a good amount as a pension at the end of 10, 15 years, or this can build a kitty for your retirement, or, you know, you will, this is a ULIP policy, this is a money back policy, you will get money after every 5 years, etc. You just have very little premium to pay. None of these insurance policies really cover a doctor well. The only policy that a doctor has to ask for, which is a life insurance policy I'm talking about, is a term cover. There is also calculations done to find out how much term cover you should take, whether it should be 1 crore, 2 crore, 3 crore, 50 lakh, 5 crore, what is it that you should take? This is the only cover which will secure your family in case anything has to happen to you. And the last important point is you need to diversify in assets other than property. So for doctors, we've seen that there's a lot of affinity to property. So they're either buying a house or they have a clinic, they might have a second clinic, and they only think of purchasing the property. Property is a good investment, but you have to limit overexposure to it. So you need to have more liquid assets as you're growing and earning. So try and diversify in other assets. People who are in 50 to 60 years, who are in the earning phase. Now here, the main focus we help doctors with is if you've taken a loan, then how do you want to repay a loan? Obviously, this depends on a number of factors, like what is the interest rate going on, what are the other pressures on the doctor, etc. But we have helped some people where they wanted to repay off their high interest loans, and we have been able to keep some money aside and at frequent intervals been able to help them to reduce their debt burden. Second, something that doctors don't like or identify with: retirement. So when we say retirement, we are not talking about you doing nothing, because that's not what a doctor can do. So idea is that you have the choice, or you have the freedom to choose how many hours you work, how much time do you give to your profession, whereas how much time you give maybe to your other responsibilities, or probably to your hobbies or anything else that is your passion. So it's very important at this stage, when most of your liabilities and responsibilities are almost getting over by the time you're 55, 60, please, you need to get your retirement calculation done if you've not already done it much before. Harness your ability to maximize savings and investments. Now, this point I would would want to say this again and again, because we have seen doctors that once they invest, it's like done. So they don't see that they can actually improve their situation. We have doctors who just do maybe a investment of 3 lakh a month, and I'd ask them, why 3 lakh? Why not 2 lakh? Why not 5? Why not 6? Your income is 15, 20 lakhs a month, then they don't have an answer, because for them it's a figure they're comfortable with. So keep harnessing your ability to maximize your savings. You will see the corpus that you can generate at the end. Do not take up unnecessary insurance policies. This again, besides term cover, what happens is, since this is the earning stage, you want to do your tax planning, or it's the month of March, the CA says, okay, put your money in this insurance policy. You do not need to put yourself in 10, 15 different policies that we've seen doctors do. There was a doctor who had 50 insurance policies, was paying more than 15 lakh rupees premium per year. This is a complete leakage in your financial situation. You need to take stock of how much insurance policies you have. And making a will. Now, making a will is something that you can even do in the age group 40 to 50 years. There is no time for when to make a will. As soon as you have assets in your name and you start earning, you have built reasonable asset side, you should make a will. Particularly mentioned here because in this age group, you've made your money, you are earning a lot of money. It's very important that you therefore safeguard that by making a will. And lastly, we have many doctors who are in this stage, 60 plus years. We have doctors who are retirees and they still know that they need a plan to manage their finances so that they do not outlive their savings. So at this stage, one is no new debt to be taken as far as possible. Also, if you've not already planned, then you have to work towards focusing on your financial freedom, which is what I talked about, the freedom to choose if you can stop working. Now, this is very closely related to the third and the fourth point, which I'm going to mention, which is very important, is most doctors, they don't have a thinking where they think, okay, if I slow down, what happens to my practice? What happens to my clinic? Or what happens to this hospital? They just think, okay, I'll just rent it out or I'll shut it, or it's just an asset for my kids. But there are so many things that you can do to actually monetize this. For example, we recently had a case where we had a doctor who had a partnership with two other doctors, but their kids are not in the same specialty. So they were wondering whether they should sell off their partnership and therefore monetize their part, or they should keep it for their kids and they would be able to use it. So they were thinking about how they can work on the practice that they built for last 30 years. Now, there was another doctor who was very, very clear, in fact, a gynecologist himself, who was very clear that, he doesn't want to keep working till the age of 65, and he was barely 55 years of age. We actually helped to look at somebody, a big brand, a reliable brand who could take over his practice, and he would continue to work with them, but get a royalty for it. There was also another doctor, dentist actually, who had a son who was in dentistry. But he said, I don't want to give my son everything on a platter, then how will he value it? I have worked for 35 years. Let's look at a situation where I am handing over my practice to him, but I also get paid a bit for my retirement phase. So there were so many things that we can look at while looking at different life stages for financial planning. Now, a very important point over here is practice valuation, which is that if you are going to value your practice, it involves not only the real estate, but also involves your goodwill that you have generated over 30 years, and also the patients and the income that you generated over the years. So adding up all this, you are able to then plan what is the best method for your succession planning. So this is a very important slide, doctors, because all your decisions will depend upon these pointers that I've put across. If you have a pen and paper, please note it down. There is one thought linked to this which I want to emphasize on. This is the cost of delaying, because when we meet doctors, there is no rush. There is no rush to take an action. Right? Especially they wait for times like this where, when there's uncertainty and they suddenly realize that, oh yes, I should have thought about this 6 months back. So let's say you have an investment of 25,000 rupees and you invest this till the age of 60. At different ages in life, how does this impact? So if you invest at 30 years of age, the total investment that you have done is only 90 lakhs, but the wealth that you've accumulated is more than 5 CR by doing just 25,000 and forgetting about it. Similarly, at the age of 40, if you take a 10-year gap, you say, okay, I'll start this 25,000 later. From 60 lakhs, it comes to 1.89 CR. So although it's a big corpus, but look at the difference in the corpus if you start early and if you start 10 years later. It's huge, because this is where compounding comes into the picture. It's the eighth wonder of the world. It is something that you cannot see, but when you actually look at it after 15, 20 years, you will really realize by doing small things, by taking small steps, you can really have an ocean at the end. So very, very powerful and important data point here. So I have basically tried to tell you how you should look at financial planning at your different life stages. Now let's get on to the next takeaway, which is planning for contingency and cash flows in the current times. So what is contingency? Like I told you, contingency basically means planning for emergencies, right? Now, when would this emergency happen? It may happen like situation like this, which is out of your control, or it could happen where there is a medical situation or an accident. You're unable to work for a few weeks to months. So there is a mismatch in your income and your expenses. The last two are the most important points. So what should be your contingency fund? What should be your emergency fund? Whatever are your expenses, important fixed expenses, multiply that by either 6 months or 12 months, and that is your contingency requirement. And where should you keep this contingency? People feel that, oh, with doctors, especially, we have seen, because you have uncertain income levels, you keep money in the bank account. So sometimes when I talk to doctors, how much is there in your bank account? It's around 40 lakh, 50 lakh. That is not your emergency fund. So you don't have to keep everything in a savings account. The last line that I have, made it bold. Please, doctors, note it down. If you have looking at contingency fund, it has to be distributed between your bank account, your liquid fund, your arbitrage fund, and short-term fixed deposits. All right. So very, very important to note. These are the main places where your contingency fund needs to be kept. Now, how do you calculate what is your contingency fund? This is where your cash flow comes into the picture. Cash flow is nothing but budget. Like for women, it's probably easier because you do budgeting of the house all the time. So you know what is coming in, what is going out. Not exactly perhaps, but you have an idea. So cash flow planning is what is your income and what is going to be your expenses. And I'm going to explain this with a live example of someone who we met just before the lockdown happened and the COVID issue was cropping up. So when we looked at his expenses, the expenses that he had per month, whether or not he earns his income, he had EMIs, taxation that he needed to pay, monthly living, which is food, groceries, maids, the insurance policies that you need to pay, although they're annual expenses, but you break it down into monthly. And it came to 4,10,000 rupees. He also had to pay his hospital staff. So 4,10,000 was his expense, whether or not he earns anything. Now, he saw a big dip in his income, almost 70% dip in his income. So from 10 lakh rupees per month, his income had dipped to around 3 lakh rupees. So if you have to look at his situation, then his contingency requirement is basically 4,10,000 rupees into 6 months. So 24 lakhs at least is what he needed for his contingency. Now, how do you manage therefore? So first thing is you find out, okay, you're still earning something, your expenses are there. What is the gap? So the gap in this case was 1,10,000 rupees per month, which means a gap of more than 6 lakh rupees over the next 6 months, where the income will continue to be much lower or may fluctuate. He may not be able to work as much. So how do you fill this deficit? What do you do? So what are the available options for all the doctors who have logged in? First important thing is to see what are the expenses that I can defer. Okay, so if it is an EMI, should I take the moratorium? Now, in most cases, we have seen that doctors do not want to take the moratorium because they have some income coming in. Plus, it's not really a moratorium because the interest is still being charged and then you end up paying more. So if it is not too much of a pressure, then EMI doctors have preferred to continue. However, there are some companies like insurance companies who've given a grace period so that they don't have to pay premium immediately. Also, many a times doctors have to make payment, so you can see whether the people you have to make payment to, can that be deferred, and it is possible. We have checked in a lot of live cases. So first, see if you can control your expenses. Second is, like I said, your contingency is always there. First, you check your savings balance account, your current account, your liquid funds, your arbitrage funds, and see what is the amount there. Fortunately for this doctor, there was close to around 15 lakh rupees there. And we realized when we looked at his entire situation that there was another insurance policy from which he would have got another 5 to 10 lakh rupees that would have come in the next 1 month or so. So he was sufficiently covered, thankfully. But if not, then what are the other options that people have? You can look at taking overdraft from your bank, because most doctors have a long-standing relationship with their bank, and the banks are more than willing in such a way condition to give an overdraft facility. You can look at taking a working capital loans. You can also look at loans against your mutual funds, your shares, your property, your fixed deposits. Of course, this is not the first option, because you have to look at what is the interest rate, which could be a little higher. But if it is an emergency, this is one of the options that doctors have. And lastly is dipping into your existing savings and investments. If no options are available, you need to check with your advisor before you take a decision to get into your current investments, which may not be giving you the right returns at the moment, because markets are fluctuating and no one is certain of what's happening in the economy. There are penalties that may be there. There is the tax impact, etc. So keeping all that in mind, you need to have somebody to help you to figure out if you need to get out of some investments. So these are the main options to look after your contingency and cash flows. Now, this is very important. So all this, we actually have an Excel sheet. Then when during these COVID times, we gave this Excel sheet to all our doctors, which helped them to write down their expenses for next 6 months till December, write down their expected income for next 6 months. So this gives them a clarity. There is a clarity. You clearly know, okay, in about 4 months, I have this expense coming up. I have to pay for my kid's education fee. Maybe he's going abroad. I have 20 lakhs to pay. I didn't account for that. So there's a clarity, first of all. Second is you have a clear goal amount in your mind. So for example, for this doctor, he knew that any point in time, I need 25 lakhs easily available. It should be in my hands in a day or two. So it has to be in savings account, in my liquid funds, etc. But 25 lakhs is my amount. And the third thing is that this amount is a trigger. It's a trigger that anything more than 25 is additional. And if you don't have a contingency need, this can be safely parked into something else for your other needs. So, for example, I had a doctor couple who used to keep contingency fund for their travel requirements every year. And they realized after 2 years that they never touched this contingency fund. And they said, oh, that means I had so much surplus that I could invest, but I never invested because I thought I'll be stretching myself. So although I can manage my travel with all the earnings I have in my savings account, I still kept a contingency fund aside for my different other emergencies, which was a big, big revelation to them. So these three things is what a contingency planning helps you with. So very, very important. And once you've taken care of your contingency, now let's see the main takeaway. How do you safeguard and invest your current surplus? Now, before I get into that, let me explain what we have seen with doctors. What are the common financial mistakes that doctors make? Now, these mistakes are usually made because they do not have enough financial knowledge, because, like I said, they only think investment is what financial planning is all about. I'll just put my money here and there in 10 different buckets and I'll be sorted. Second is they're always running short of time. So if they're running short of time, they depend on other people. They oblige a friend, banker, patient, whoever is ready to help them. They oblige them, and randomly the investments are made. When I say randomly, it's not with a plan, the 7-step process. And because of these, typically in 90% of the doctors, we have seen these 5 mistakes. There are a lot of insurance policies, like I said, which sometimes make no sense for the doctors. They do not even cover him well. And at the same time, the premiums are very, very high, and they don't have a term cover, which is the right thing to have. Secondly, fixed deposits. We see doctors keep a lot of money lying in fixed deposits. Now, fixed deposits were a good idea maybe 10 years back when the interest rates were really high. But today, when the interest rates are falling and there are so many issues with banks as well, then having fixed deposits, all your money kept with fixed deposits, is never a good idea. Third is the tax syndrome. Tax syndrome means most of the doctors, now thankfully after demonetization this has reduced, but most of the CAs would tell the doctors that, okay, you do not have to show all your income, you need to save on your tax. And to do that, they would show very low income as compared to what they were really earning. So that is something that should not be done. Thankfully, after demonetization, we have doctors telling us that now almost 80% is credit and only 20% is in cash, and that problem is sorted. Property mania, basically, like I said, too much affinity to property because you can touch it, feel it, and you know that you will always have an asset. Never have too much of an exposure to it, maybe limit it to 30 to 40% of your overall portfolio, because it is at the end of the day an illiquid asset. You cannot quickly sell a property and get money out, maybe in a emergency situation like this. And advisor syndrome. So like I said, anyone who has financial knowledge becomes an advisor for doctors. So even if it's a family friend, it's a chartered accountant, it's someone from the family working with a bank, they just think that if you work on the tips provided by them, then you've done your financial planning. But that is not how it is. It is pretty much like I ask 10 people, oh, what do I take for my stomach ache? Someone recommends me something and I take that. So that is not how things are to be done. You need a proper financial coach, pretty much like I need a family doctor that I'll first go to in case I have any issues. Right? So after having built this base, let's see, how do you safeguard your financial life? First thing, like I said, please check currently if you have a term cover, and what is the term cover that you need. Get the calculations done and get your right term cover. Review all your policies, see if there are any policies that need to be exited out of, so that you prevent the leakage, your expenses reduce. And third most important thing is have nominations in all your investments. Take a look at it if you have second holder put in, nominees put in, etc. And also see if you have the time to put a will in place. So this is the basic requirements for safeguarding your financial life. But if you look at safeguarding and investing your existing surplus, now this is where, now I'm not going to be here telling you, oh, put your money in this fund and put your money in that fixed deposit, or in this government bond, or in this gold, or this property, okay? Because it is like having a checklist. Now, a doctor or a surgeon, when he goes and operates, there is always a checklist in his mind. He knows that tuck, 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 these things are taken care of, the hygiene factors are taken care of. And then you know that the chances of you going right are maximum. Similarly, there is a checklist when today you will look, or a few months hence, you will look at investing your surplus. The first thing that you need to ask yourself in this checklist is, what will you need this money for? Will you need this money for travel? Would you need this money to pay your taxes? Will you need this money to pay somebody you owe some money? What do you need this money for? Second is, when would you need this money? Will you need this money a year down the line? You may need this money 3 years down the line. You may not need this money for a very long time. This is your surplus. You can park it for a 5 to 7 years plus period. And third is your risk-taking ability. Basically, this means that we've seen doctors take a lot of risk in their medical profession, but when it comes to finance, their risk appetite is totally different. So it's very important to assess whether you're a balanced kind of an investor mentality, or you just don't like any aggression, you're very conservative. Most doctors tell themselves they're conservative, but when we do a risk assessment, that's not what it shows. So it's very important that you first take care of these 3 steps, because these 3 steps of the financial planning process takes you to where should you invest, what investments you should do, and how should you allocate your investments. Now, where you put your investments is something that it will be different for different people, and even the amount of money that you need to put in different products will be different. So this is pretty much like if I have, say, a problem, and I Google it, or I go to a chemist, I will get medicines, I will get an information on which medicines are working, which I can try out. But that is not the right approach. It is like, instead of going to a chemist, I need to go to a doctor, because he will give me the right advice, and he might just say, hey, you probably don't even need a medicine, just do a walk or just take care of your diet and you'll be fine. right? So it's very important because personal finance is more personal and less finance. So every person's situation is different. So different products and different asset allocation is what would be required. What I'm going to show you in the next slide is basically what are the options available to you after you go through this checklist. So the main options available to you are, there is markets, so equity, which is shares or mutual funds. You have debt products, have small savings, which is like fixed deposits, or you have bonds, you have senior citizen savings schemes, you have Kisan Vikas Patra, you have postal schemes, etc. Pension products and gold. So what you see on your screen right now is a lot of data, and I'm not going to spend too much time on this data. What I'm trying to show over here is there are many products under each category which are available, right? What people look at primarily is the expected returns. Kitna milega mujhe? What will I get? But that is not the only thing the person should look at, because there are always, read the offer document carefully. There are always terms and conditions. What they have to look at is what is the post-tax return, what is the real rate of return after taking into account inflation. Because inflation is the only thing which is not visible. You can always see a fixed deposit which says 7% return. A mutual fund will say 12% return. You will have a tax-free bond saying 6% return. But what is the inflation and what do you get after inflation is the real deal. Also, the risks that are associated for getting that return. So what I have done is, wherever there are negative returns after taking into account inflation, I've marked it in red. So if you see, fixed deposits, whether bank or corporate FDs, tax-free bonds, or pension annuity schemes, these are red flags for people who are in 10 to 30% tax bracket. Yes, people who are not in a tax bracket, or maybe even only in 10% tax bracket, then they can look at really what is the rate of return that they are getting post inflation. The ones which are marked in blue are where post inflation also the returns are positive. So primarily equity mutual funds, debt mutual funds, PPF, some senior citizen schemes and government bonds. Everything depends on what tax bracket you are in. If you see, typically if most of the things are taxable, there are very few tax-free options available, which is why it's very important that you sit with your financial advisor and figure out, if you have surpluses, where should you put it, how should you put it. So the ones which beat the inflation are the ones which I've marked as a tick mark in green over here. You can just note it down for your reference. The details are not in this slide. So like I said, there will be many options for you in this current scenario. There are more than 500 mutual fund schemes. There are so many mutual fund houses. There are so many banks offering gold funds and gold bonds currently, which are doing the rounds. There are more than 100 types of insurance schemes. How do you choose? This is like, I have a plethora of medicines that I have to choose from for, say, my hair fall. What is good for me? What will make sense for me is what is very essential for you to figure out. And the only way you can figure out is, why are you putting in the money? What is your goal? When do you need the money? What is your time horizon? And what is your risk appetite? All these three have to be taken care of based on your age and your life's financial situation. So you see, the PPT has taken you through all the three things: understanding your age, understanding contingency, and finally the 3 steps that is required to invest your surplus. I will still give you some thumb rules here. If your time frame is more than 5 to 7 years, then typically equity or market related products would make sense. There are also some long-term debt products like PPF and tax-free bonds that you can look at. All depends on what your financial coach advises you. If your time frame is up to 3 years, then there are debt mutual funds, there are fixed deposits, especially for senior citizens. If your time frame, however, is 1 to 2 years, like I said, liquid funds, short-term fixed deposit, and arbitrage funds make sense for you. So these are the thumb rules. Again, like I said, it all depends upon your age, financial situation, and what you want to invest for. Now, whatever I have explained, I gave you some numbers. I want to explain this with real life case studies. So we have taken two common goals. This is primarily for doctors who are in the growing stage and in the earning stage. So from 40 to 50 years to 50 to 60 years. So let's say someone is 45 years of age. If you just see the first column, okay. And when we speak to them about financial freedom, when would you want to slow down? 65 years of age is when he wants to slow down. We always do the calculation till 90 years of age because that is the average life expectancy given the medical advancement that's happened. So it's always good that you make provisions so that you don't outlive your savings. So this person that said that the monthly amount required to sustain their lifestyle was 2 lakh rupees. That would be enough. So 2 lakh agar hoga, I'll be fine at the age of 65 years. What we did was we have to check with inflation. So today inflation is at 6%. It is actually supposed to be 7%. Now inflation will happen from current age till the age of 90 years. So we found out that his inflated income need is not 2 lakh rupees, but 6 lakh of rupees. So he needs to see how can he fund 6 lakh of rupees every year till his age 90. So the corpus that was required was 14 CR for him. And he was like, oh my God, 14 CR, how do I make up 14 CR? But what he got clarity was that if he today has anywhere between 1.5 to 1.7 crore money invested in whatever assets he's invested, if managed well, he will be able to achieve the retirement corpus of 14 CR. From 1.7 CR to 14 CR in the matter of 20 years. And if he has to put some savings every month, then he needs a SIP of 1.6 lakh rupees. Assuming till 45 he's done nothing, then he will need a SIP of only 1.6 lakh rupees every month for the next 20 years, and he will be able to achieve his goal. If you compare that to a person who's currently in 55 years of age and has not thought about financial freedom, but wants to probably, right now think that, oh, at the age of 65, I'll retire. Life expectancy being the same, the monthly amount required being the same. If you see the inflated need has come down because now it's only about 10 years from 55 to 65 years of age. So he will need 4 lakh rupees at the age of 65. But look at the corpus that he can build. From 14 crore, he will be able to build only rupees 8 crore corpus. There is a difference in corpus. At the same time, to make this 8 crore corpus, what he will require to keep aside every month as his savings has more than doubled. So it's 3.5 lakh. If he keeps aside every month, he'll be able to create his retirement corpus. So this is keeping in mind that the inflation is at 6% and you expect returns of 9% till the age of 90, average every year. So 14 and 8 crores is the main thing for you, and the SIP that is required. So when you start earlier, you're able to build a bigger corpus at much lesser amount of investment. That's the point I'm trying to drive across. So this is for financial freedom. There is another goal which typically doctors who are in the age group 40 to 50 years have, and one very important goal most Indian parents have is higher education fund for their child. Now, I've given an example here. A child is at the age of 12 years. So if you're at the age of 12 years, then for undergraduation, you'll probably need money at the age of 18 years. Now, if that's the case, today an undergrad takes anywhere close to 40 to 50 lakhs a year. So for the next 4 years or 5 years, it's around 2 CR. And we've done these calculations for our doctor clients, most of them as, every year. So the future value, keeping inflation in mind, and education inflation honestly is much higher than 6%. So the future value that they really have to build for is 3 crores and not 2 crores as of now. So for this, they need to keep aside money of 3 lakh rupees per month. if they want to build a 3 crore corpus for their child. So for example, if a person is 45 years of age and he has these two goals, he needs 3 lakh rupees monthly investment for his child, and he needs 1.6 lakhs for his financial freedom. Now, you may not be able to do this entire SIP, at one go, but like I said, every step matters, every drop matters. So whatever it is that you need to do, you need to start doing, and you step it up every year. So these are what we have actually calculated for our clients. Now, the important why this is important is because there is always a difference between how you perceive your need versus what it really is. So, for example, this is a real life case study where we met somebody who was already at 60 years of age. And he said, if I retire, I'll retire at 65. I may continue to work, but then I may retire at 65. His need was 3 lakh rupees a month. The way he did calculation, when I asked him, have you done your financial plan? Have you done your retirement planning? He said, yes, I'm sorted. I know that from wherever I've put in the money, I will get 8% returns. 8% return, I already have created a corpus of 5 CR, which will be close to 5 CR in the next 5 years. So 8% of 5 CR is 40 lakhs, and that is more than 3 lakhs a month. So I'm sorted. I have no need of a financial plan. Perception. When we actually sat down and did the calculation, which needs to be done, because remember, we are following a process. We are not just putting the money in different funds or different bonds. So when we did this calculation, we realized that at the age of 65, he will not need 3 lakh of rupees. He would actually need 4 lakh of rupees. And this is only at the age of 65. Like I said, inflation is going to happen till the age 90. So he has to account for inflation every year. So with an 8% return, he needs a retirement corpus of not 5 CR, but 9.6 CR. So he was off by more than 4 CR in his goal calculations because he had forgotten inflation. For 30 years of inflation forgotten. And that is where we say the reality is different from perception, which is why having a process is very, very important. So I hope I'm able to drive this point across with this example. Having said that, any time is the right time to start financial planning. The right time is now, whether you're 30, 40, 50, or 60, you will need to have a coach who will guide you not only in the good times, but also in the uncertain times. We provide different services for doctors, everything that I have covered, insurance analysis, understanding your tax impact on investments, reviews every year. In fact, in today's times, we are reviewing doctors' portfolio every 2 to 3 months, helping the family with wills, coordinating with their CAs as well, enabling them to plan for their goals rather than just putting money in investment products, managing their debt, helping them if they want to do a property or a real estate buying, then how do you analyze it? All of this is taken care of by us. So I've provided a helpline. It's a pro bono service. If any of you need any help, we are doing this especially for Intas doctors. So you can call any of these numbers here, or you can write an email. Please, doctors, note this down. Or you can visit us at the email at the website which has been given, and we will get back in touch with you. I hope I've been able to cover most of the points which probably were in your mind, and then we are now okay to take the question and answer session.
Before that, we'd like to have comments on your
list. So firstly, thank you all the doctors for a patient hearing. Thank you for your attention. Thank you for your time, for listening to the PPT. I would say that this entire practice has been built with a lot of passion, and after dealing doctors for the last 12 years, almost, we have been a part of their life. So, I would like to quickly, sum it up in just a minute about this entire, presentation as such. I was just thinking what exactly each one of us want in our life. We all want to be healthy, and I'm sure the doctors also want each and every patient to be healthy. Now, what are the basics? I'm just coming to the basics because the PPT actually hit on the basics of a life. If you take care of the basics, 80% of the things are being taken care. So if each one of us need to be healthy, what do you need to do? Okay. So first is nutrition. You need to have good nutrition. Okay. Second is emotional well-being is very important, which most of the doctors say when you're stressed out or when you're anxious, you call for a lot of problems like diabetes and BP and etc. The third, I would say that you need to have a good sleep at night. It's very, very, very important. And the fourth one is exercise. Exercise doesn't mean that you have to hit the gym and do a heavy workout. Whenever I've asked doctors, they've always said, just do a 30-minute minimum walk is good. 45 minutes is good enough, but 30 minutes is good enough. Okay. So if you have these four things in your life, basic, can be done, sustainable thing, which you can do it. If you do this, you lead a healthy life. Similarly, I'm just trying to think that what are the key takeaways from this entire presentation? So there are few important things that we need to keep in mind and we need to do. If that is being done, then I would say your financial situation is sorted. Okay, you're financially fit, and whatever goals, financial goals, priorities, needs that you have listed for yourself in life, it can be one goal or it can be, more than one as such. So those can be easily achieved. So what are they? So when it comes to sleep, let me relate to the contingency planning part of it. If the contingency planning is not done, even a small stress, forget about COVID, I'm saying, even a small stress in your situation, even if the income stops for a week, 2 weeks, or whatever number of weeks or months, it really brings a lot of anxiety in your life. Okay, so contingency is very, very, very important. Even before you start your investments, first do your contingency planning. Second is risk management. Will any one of us drive on a highway without a seat belt? Of course not. You know what you're calling for. Okay. So similarly, risk management is nothing but the seat belt. You drive well, but someone may hit you. So you are wearing that seat belt. So what are the seat belt in financial life? Your term cover. Very important to have a right term cover on your life. Second is very important to have a right health cover. Then the disability. So these are three things. I'm talking on the basics. We can go more detailed. We can understand the situation and talk about what are the risks and how that can be mitigated. But these are the three basics that will be important for everyone. Then I would say once these two things are taken care, then comes the saving. So as Indians, we are good savers, but are we good when it comes to investments as such? Okay. Just like there is no age when you can start your exercise. Similarly, there is no age as such. I should only do at 40 my investments. You can do your investments at any point of time. The earlier you start, the better it is for you as such. So investing early is very, very, very important. Like how Chanda explained in the presentation, how that really helps you grow a bigger and a better corpus. Now, when it comes to investments, when you're investing, what's the most important thing that you need to keep in mind? What is the purpose that I have for the investment? Because the purpose will decide the time frame for the investments. Okay, whether it is for 2 years, 5 years, 6 years. What I've realized that we spend a lot of research and analysis when we want to buy a phone. I'm sure there's a purpose. You either you want a good camera or a storage area or a good battery life. Similarly, you need to attach a reason as to why you're investing, because the reason gets associated with the investment vehicle, because every investment vehicle will give you the desired return after a particular number of years. Like yesterday in the webinar, one of the doctors asked me this question. I have been investing in equity for the last 2 years and I've not got the return. So I was just thinking that equity is not an investment for 2 years. Typically, you need to be there for 5 to 7 years. Okay, so the expectation setting was not right. Yeah. So whenever you're investing, please define the purpose, because the purpose will define the investment vehicle. Okay. Lastly, the most important is the inflation, which is an invisible enemy out there. So your investment post-tax returns has to beat the inflation. If all these basics are taken care, you are sorted. Your financial health is absolutely perfect. Yeah. So I would just summarize with this. Yeah. Thanks, Dr. Abhijit. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you both of you for such a wonderful presentation. I'm sure.
Yeah, I hope this was insightful and this helps everyone as such.
Exactly. I'm sure audience has gained a lot of insights on financial management.
Dr.
Now,
Thank
Malvi,
you.
Dr. Malvi, I would say if any of them need any help, say with
Yeah.
retirement planning, contingency, or just reviewing their current portfolio, just tell them to, put it in the comment section or the chat section, and it
Sure.
will help you to understand where they need help with.
Exactly. Now we have few questions for you from doctors. I'll take first question.
Yeah.
Is it proper time to invest in markets during this financial crisis?
So, good question, interesting one, because I would say that the market is currently at a sale. So when there is a sale in the market, what you do? You go and buy your stuff. Actually, we wait for sales. Okay, 50% discount, 30% discount. So currently, the market is at a 30% discount. Now, whenever the markets are at a volatility stage, that's the time when you should invest your money. And this, because of COVID, the current volatility that is there in the market is actually presenting a great opportunity for investment. And this has come in I would say in the last 30 years. This is the third time this has come in. The last time was in 2008. After 12 years, we have got an opportunity. So if anyone has surplus, please invest either in lump sum or SIP. So to answer the question, it's a great time for investment, because people who stayed, I would say, who stayed put in 2008 and who invested in 2008, they could see the benefits today. The kind of returns they would have got would be way, way better than people who would have come out of it or who would have not done the investment. So it's a great time for investments as such.
Only thing is you need to know where you are putting in the money.
Yeah, perfect. That is
there
the
is a discount, but at the same time, you should, just because there's a discount doesn't mean that everything is good, right? So
Yeah,
it is
perfect.
also important that your coach tells you which are the things to pick up. So you should be in the market. If you have the surplus, you're not stressed about your cash flows, please stay put in the market, but just in the right stocks. Yeah.
Next question is what precisely do you mean by term insurance, life, critical illness, or disability insurance?
Okay. Let me first tell you what insurance is all about. The word insurance is nothing but transferring your risk from you to the company. That is the word insurance is all about. Okay? Now, in insurance, there are different types of insurance. The term insurance talks about where you are transferring the risk of your life. If anything happens to the breadwinner of the family is well taken care of, because the family would have dreamed all the goals, and there would be a lot of financial responsibilities that the family would have to take care of it. Okay, so if the breadwinner is not there, what will happen to the family? So taking a cover on your life, this is similar to taking you don't get anything back in return, you're just covering your life. So for a small premium, you get a bigger cover. That's the advantage of a term cover, which is very, very important. So rather than going for other investment oriented policies, which is not recommended, go for a pure term cover. Yeah. The second was a health insurance you spoke about now.
Yeah.
So having adequate health insurance is very, very important, because we don't have good social security systems in India. And also the time when you really need the cover at that particular time, if you take your health cover late, you don't get the required amount and the premiums also high. So it's very important to take an adequate cover for yourself. So here again, your financial coach will guide you and tell you, what kind of, because see, every health cover will have lot of options. The detailings will happen, and what are the riders that are there, what are the available options, what kind of cover do you have, floater or individual policy. So your financial coach, advisor will guide you on the same for them. Yeah. And the third, you said
Disability.
Yeah, disability. Yeah. Disability, why is it so important? See, as doctors, like what Chanda said, you're a glorified daily wage, and that's what most of the doctors have said. So if your income is completely dependent on you, so it's very important you take care of any kind of a temporary or permanent disability. What disability means, in case because of accident, because of certain reason, you can't operate for some number of days or months, the cover takes care of the income during that time. So again, you will have to understand the terms, condition. The good part about all these covers are for a smaller premium, you get a bigger cover.
Bigger cover. Yeah.
Next question.
Answered. If anyone has further any questions on this, please post it on the chat, and we will take it after the session. What I'm planning to do, if anyone has any question, my team will call you up and help you with whatever queries that you have, so that we answer whatever that is running in your mind in terms of queries or clarifications. Yeah.
Yes. Next question is, can you explain a bit how to calculate the cash flow?
Cash flow, to keep it very simple, cash flow, what does the word cash flow means? Cash means income, flow means expenses. Okay. So whatever income that you're getting, you minus the expenses, whatever that is remaining is your, either it will be a surplus or a deficit. If it's a deficit, you have to really look into your expenses and see where exactly the spendings are happening and can something be done about it. Okay. If there is a surplus, like as I said, investments need to be started. The day you start earning, your investments have to start. You save, but investments needs to happen. Yeah? So cash flow is nothing but your income minus your expenses. Whatever you get at the end of the month is your saving or your deficit. Yeah. So that needs to be invested and put into right kind of instruments and such. Yeah.
Dr. Malvi, like I said, we have actually an Excel sheet made for doctors' benefit. If any of the doctors need it, we can email it to them.
Sure, sure.
What we can do, Chanda, is like when we are sending the email, thank you email to everyone, we can also attach the
sheet.
Right.
Yeah.
We can attach there, and they can do the calculations for themselves. Everything is
The doctors have found it really beneficial.
Yeah, they have really found it very useful, so we can share that with you. Yeah.
Next question is, I would like to know when and how to redeem money from mutual fund.
Yeah, so I would say that redemption from mutual fund will depend on your goal. Like suppose you invested it for your kids' education and the time frame has come. If you don't have any other surplus, then you redeem it. Otherwise, mutual fund is for long-term kind of an investment thing. We are not traders. There is a different, investors are different, traders are different. Traders will buy, sell. We don't recommend that for a long-term investor. So you are investing for a reason and a purpose. When that reason or purpose comes, you can redeem it. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense. Even people have asked in this market, should I redeem and reinvest and keep it in liquid? It is not at all recommended as such. You should stay input in your investments.
And another important thing here, Dr. Malvi, is that typically if you have followed the financial planning process and your goal is going to come, then the money is actually removed from mutual funds, equity mutual funds or debt mutual funds, and kept in liquid so that it is not affected by something uncertain like a COVID or some market movement. That is the point of plan. If you've not planned it, then the money is lying in equity markets, and now because everything is down, you don't know whether you should redeem or not, right? So it's all a part of the process.
Next question is, liquid funds safe in current pandemic situation?
Yeah, so I'll try to put it in a very simple layman language. Liquid fund, like how every drug is a composition of several components and then that drug is made. What is liquid fund? Liquid fund is nothing but a composition of all the treasury bills, the bank papers, and all. I'm trying to tell it in a very simple fashion. If you're comfortable investing in a government bond, if you're comfortable investing in a bank, then liquid fund is similar to that. So liquid fund is safe, and that's where most of the people keep their interim money. Yeah, it is not linked to the equity market, because most of the people think liquid funds are linked to the equity market. They are not linked to the equity market as such. So that is one of the options that most of the people use for keeping their contingency money as such. I can see one question, Dr. Abhijit. It says that, can I invest in gold bonds? See, whenever the markets are volatile and they fluctuate a lot, that's when the prices of gold increase. And we can see that has actually risen. So gold investments in gold can be done to the tune of 5 to 10% of your overall asset allocation. Like what Chanda explained in her presentation, asset allocation is nothing but having a balanced diet. You'll not take too much of protein or too much of carbohydrates. Similarly, your gold allocation in your investments cannot exceed more than 5 to 10% of it. Yeah.
So gold always will make a big comeback when times are uncertain. So
Yeah.
if this question has come now, it's because everyone is talking about gold because equity
Correct.
is down.
Correct.
If you look at the last 5 to 10 years data, gold has done nothing. It has not even beat inflation. So people have got negative returns. It's only in the last 6 months that suddenly everyone is talking gold, 10% return, 20%, 30% return. So that's why don't go by the current situation. You have to really look at what gold bond or gold fund you're looking at and then figure out whether you need to keep it for a few years.
Yeah, madam. In comment box, I'm seeing questions as well as appreciation for both of you. Madam.
Thank you, Dr. Abhishek.
Thank you so much.
Thank you
Thank you
again
so
for
much.
solving your queries. And I would like to thank our BU head, Mr. DP Sattari sir, and our division head, Mr. Manisha sir, for making this event possible. Have a nice day ahead.
Thank you so much, Intas.
Thank you so much.
The doctors, thank you so much for your time and your
Thank
attention. Thank you.
Madam,
And
you
have
can,
a good evening.
you can display contact numbers for our
I will. Yes. So people can note it down.
Yeah. So these are the helpline numbers. You can contact these numbers for your all queries. Kindly note it down. These are very important numbers.
So actually, just to give you a thought on why we are even thinking about these helpline, during the COVID situation, when we were talking to our doctors, so in the last, since like in the introduction, Chanda specified that as a firm, we specialize in managing wealth for doctors. We saw the kind of, the entire planet Earth is impacted, and doctor, like they are on the forefront fighting the biggest, crisis. With the incomes being impacted to a greater extent, the kind of stress and the lifestyle changes or whatever that's happening, we said that we need to do our bit in seeing how we can help them, and that's where the entire concept of helpline came in. And so this is a pro bono service where we are trying to see whatever help they need, whatever support they need, whatever queries they have, they can just feel free, call us up and talk to us, and we will guide them on the same.
Yeah.
I hope all of you have noted it down. I thank my financial advisor for all their reports, and I'm ending this session. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Bye.
Yeah, bye. Thank you.